Welcome back to our little wilderness trek in Let's Play Storm of Zehir. There's a couple areas back here, and I'm just going to pick them up now because I don't want to have to come back to this area. Since your caravans never get attacked unless you are in the area, you really don't want to move through areas where your caravans are likely to get attacked. You want to just let them do their thing unmolested. And in this case, this is the most dangerous part of the area of the map for your caravans. So you really don't want to spend any more time here than necessary. And I'm actually going to spend most of my time in the area before I even bother to set up the caravans. Otherwise you have to repair them constantly. So here's this Illifarn ruin, which we're going to explore. And this is just another little vanilla side area, though this one's actually more challenging than most. So I'm going to actually bother to use a little bit of tactics. Which means not having the mage up in the front. And getting the dinosaur to actually come closer to the front lines. Once again, we open a door with arrows, because why not? In this case, it means that if there's something on the other side of the door, it doesn't immediately jump us. It has to walk through the door, which is now open. So there's a phase spider, and there's some drow around here. Nothing too interesting, though. Including a drow arachnomancer, which presumably is some sort of spider wizard, though I've never, maybe they're just something I haven't seen before in the Forgotten Realms canon, which is a pretty strange setting, really. And they spam web like crazy, but it's really a very boring fight, and they fall pretty quickly. They really aren't helped by the fact that I am not quite as vulnerable to being webbed as many parties, because we can just use arrows. We don't actually have to walk up to them to fight them. And down they go. And I'll meet you back out on the map when I clean up. So the only interesting item there was a set of full plate +2, which isn't really that important because I already had bracers of armor +2 and a set of full plate. So it saved me a little bit. There's some wights chasing me. And wights I'm not too worried about, and I'll just fight them off screen. The reason the wights aren't very scary, really, is that all effects fall off when you... Well, I guess I'll have to fight another group. But the reason I don't really care about them is that if they level drain you, as soon as the fight is over, it wears off. So here's our next little side area. It's listed on the map as a hunting cabin. And in it we find, well, there's a Malerite druid, and I see a dire bear, so I smell a fight coming. It's not a real hard fight, though, so I'm just going to cast some basic buffs and charge right in. The Malerites, for reference, are basically just, eco-terrorists or whatnot. So much for his animals, and then we have to go fight him. And we probably don't want to leave the mage on the front line, but, it's a direwolf. It's the level 3 summon. They're not exactly super dangerous. Though I guess he did some damage. So I'll clean up and see you back on the map. The only item really of interest in that area was a recipe for a ring of major cold resistance, and even that's not really all that important because the knoll that I was talking about earlier has a recipe for that resistance, and we can enchant anything with it. Wolves have very good detection skills, so you often end up having to fight them. This is a rather interesting area in that I may have to do this in parts rather than just charging right through this Banite enclave. It's not quite as bad as the Yuan-Ti Temple for the level it is, but it's still, there are some interesting fights. So here we are in the Banite Enclave. There are essentially two fights here. I think there were supposed to be four, but once again, when you wake one up, they all come charging. So we will. I'm having the rest of the party hold position back there so that I can try and pull enemies out into the hallway instead of trying to fight them where they spawn. This first room has maybe 4 enemies in it. See, here's the next group coming in, so I'm going to unsummon my animal companion so that I can resummon it later. And these guys aren't too hard. There's quite a few of them, and they do spam knockdown at you, which is annoying, but they don't really have anything truly annoying. That can't be said of the later fight in this area. And we're almost through these guys. Though our tank is taking damage, so I'm going to heal. Well, not that heal. Alright. There's the first fight done. I'll clean up off screen. So, we can move on now, and this third room down here had more enemies in it, but they already came and joined us, so there's nothing else in there. To the far right up here, there's the treasure room, and to the north up here is sort of the boss fight. The boss fight is no joke. There are 4 enemies, including they're probably around level 15, and we're character level 11, I think. So we're going to have to beat them through superior planning or something like that. Or at least casting all of our buffs ahead of time. So why don't I do that? Okay, let's try this. Now, again, I'm going to open the door with my usual method. Oh, I can't. Well, we'll open the door. And then I am going to fall back and cast a summon into the area so that the enemies will charge at it first. Now there are 4 enemies back here. There's a monk, a fighter, a cleric, and a wizard. The wizard's the most dangerous, but he's also kind of hard to kill because he casts mirror image. More or less, these are enemies that, that they fight as you do. So if you give them an opportunity to do things like cast Bigby's hand constantly, so you look, two of our people have already been Bigby'd, um, you'll just lose. You need to be careful over this fight. Though I've been getting very lucky in this time around. And we get Bane of the Banites. If you're not careful, this wizard guy will cast Bigby's forceful hand on essentially your entire party, and you'll sit there and just watch them kill you. So you have to be essentially charging in fully powered. And for our efforts in that fight, we get a Warhammer +3, the Fists of Bane, which are kind of a wacky set of gloves that are only usable by evil monks, more or less, so they're not of interest to me. A Cloak of Protection +3 and Full Plate +3, which, some decent items. There's also an Arcane Nexus here, so we'll pick that up, which means we're going to have to head back to Neverwinter soon. And there's also this prisoner here who we can just, if you're evil, I guess you can kill him and get the same. But you get 500 XP for freeing him and 1200 XP for beating the main fight in here. So that's some pretty good XP, though it's not always an easy fight. I got very lucky the time I did it. This is the back road of the treasure room, and there's a statue back here that attacks you, and you can shoot right back. There's only one of those statues. It might have been kind of interesting to have an area with quite a few of them, but there's just one. And here is the treasure of the Banites, which really is kind of unimpressive, frankly. There are quite a few traps around here, which are worth more XP, and that's probably the most important thing you'll get by going back here. You get the history feat Bane of the Banites when you complete this area. I don't know why they bothered, it doesn't actually do anything. Some of these do. For example, Dragon Slayer gives you a bonus to attack and damage against dragons. That's sort of irrelevant, there aren't any more dragons in the game, but at least it tries. Shipwreck Survivor doesn't do anything. Forgotten Lord, as I mentioned, does appraise. Wanted doesn't do anything. Wayfarer is what I'm getting from telling Volo about areas, and I should probably actually hand in a couple more of those. But I'm going to do that next time when we come back to our Let's Play of Storm of Zehir.